I'm going to be using jackfruit but manipulating a little bit so it tastes way more meaty and a lot less fruity and vegetal. The filling for this bao is so good, so I can't wait to show you guys the recipe, so let's head over to the kitchen and then let's get started.
Okay guys, so I'm going to start off with the dough first because it needs time to rise. So a tablespoon of sugar along with 1.5 teaspoons of yeast, and then to that I'm going to add 2/3 of a cup of lukewarm water, and that's just to activate the yeast. So you can put that aside for 2 to 3 minutes and then you can prepare the rest of the dry ingredients. So I'm using whole wheat flour here. It's going to be a mixture, 1/2 cup of whole wheat flour and then 1 3/4 of a cup of all-purpose flour, and that's just to kind of make it a little bit less dense, because if you were to use all whole wheat flour, I worry that the bao is not necessarily going to taste the same. And then to that, 1/2 cup of wheat starch. Some people can't find that, and you can substitute for cornstarch, but usually I find that that makes it a little bit more gummy. Wheat starch is going to provide a little bit more structure to the mixture. So 1 teaspoon of baking powder went in along with 1/4 teaspoon of salt, and you just want to mix that to make sure that everything is homogeneous before you add it into the water and yeast mixture. So I'm going to do it on a dough hook, but you guys can actually knead it by hand for right around 10 minutes. I'm going to start on low first just to make sure that all of the ingredients are combined. If you see that it is a little bit too dry, you can add a little bit more water to it, but to that we're going to add 2 tablespoons of coconut oil to that as well. So that will kind of help to make the dough less tough. So initially it will look kind of like this. It doesn't really want to add to the dough, but then eventually after a minute or so everything will be combined, and you can see at this stage the gluten still hasn't developed yet. I'm going to turn it on to medium and then knead it for about 10 minutes, and you can see that towards the end of the 10 minutes the dough stops sticking to the side and starts developing structure. So this is one of those things where you can probably just stretch the dough and make the window glass pane like so. So this I'm going to let rest for about an hour until it's about doubled in size. So give it a good cover and then let it hang out in a nice warm place. Now time for the filling. I'm going to use 2 packages of this teriyaki jackfruit. It is pre-seasoned, and you can use just plain jackfruit that you get from the store. You just might have to season it a little bit more later. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it into the oven 325 for about 25 minutes, just until the jackfruit starts drying up. I find that this kind of has it reveal a little bit more of its fibrous texture, and it tastes a lot more meaty when it's more dried than when it's wet. So in a bowl, probably medium-high heat, 1 tablespoon of oil, and then I've chopped up 3 scallion stalks, and I just want to cook that for about 30 seconds or so, just until the flavors release before I add in all of my jackfruit. And you can see how nice and dry it is. It does get super meaty afterwards. So to that I'm going to add 3 tablespoons of soy sauce and then 2 tablespoons of hoisin sauce. And hoisin sauce is nice because it's a little bit sweet and a little bit salty, so it's kind of perfect really for the flavors of this jackfruit. So I'm just going to cook that for just about another minute or so, just until all of the flavors come together. And then this I have 2 tablespoons of water with 2 teaspoons of cornstarch that I've mixed very nicely before adding this in. And again, I'm just going to cook this up until it starts running clear like that. So it's going to be about another minute or so, and then afterwards this sauce is going to be all set. I have the jackfruit over there. I'm going to add in 1/4 teaspoon of white pepper and also 1 to 2 scallions chopped, just to maintain kind of that green flavor and crunchy texture since we cooked the other one. So you can see how that looks, and it actually looks meaty. Like, this looks good. So here's my dough. I'm just going to put it out onto a floured surface, and then I'm actually going to cut it into about 12 pieces. You can make 6 bigger baos with this or 12 kind of smaller baos, and it really depends on you. So I'm just tucking the edges under because I'm looking to make balls out of these, and I'm just rolling this with the kind of the bottom part of my palm and turning these guys into circles. So same thing for this second one, and again, depending on how big or how small you like it. Afterwards, you probably want to let these baos rest for about 20 minutes because they are very glutinous, so you might not be able to roll them out after about 20 minutes, the 20-minute rest. So this is typically how the traditional style rolls it, is you kind of rotate it and you only roll out the edges so that the middle part of the dough is a lot thicker and then the edges are a lot thinner. Okay, so I'm going to be putting 1.5 to 2 tablespoons of filling per bao, and you basically fold the edges very much like an accordion or like a fan and just push it all around. You can use kind of the other hand and the other finger to push in the filling, and sometimes I find that that kind of helps, just until you get all the way to the end, and then you kind of give it a final pinch and then a twist so that everything is nice and sealed. Okay, so then I'm putting it on a piece of parchment paper that I cut up into squares, and then this you want to let rest for about another hour after you're all done. and then it's going to be ready for steaming. So it's going to be nice and puffy and bigger before it's ready. So normally you're supposed to spritz this with a little bit of water. I didn't really have that, so I'm just going to use a brush. And then this is a technique that I read on Bon Appetit magazine. So it recommends cutting kind of a peace sign into the baos, because traditionally these guys crack open. And actually with a traditional recipe, you add powdered baking ammonia, and that is what helps kind of the baos open and crack open towards the end. I chose not to do that. I actually had that ingredient, but I wanted to try to do it this way. So I'm in a pot with boiling water, medium high, so it's a pretty nice heat. I'm just going to put this all in and then steam it for about 10 to 15 minutes. Now, very important, before you open the lid, turn off the heat and then let it wait for about 2 to 3 minutes so that it doesn't all deflate. It's also something that I read about. So you can see how amazing these baos look. They're nice and moist and fluffy, and then there's that nice meaty, sweet and savory filling on the inside, and it's just amazing. I didn't care for the cutting or the cracking too much. I kind of like it the way it is anyways, but really it's definitely up to you. And here's a nice close-up shot of me opening the bao, and I honestly love this filling. I think that kind of dehydrating the jackfruit a little bit made this really meaty, and the filling is amazing. I definitely put it up against any kind of vegan Char Siu Bao filling that there is. Anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed this recipe. I know it was a little bit long because we had to make the dough as well, and they actually do sell the bao flour at the store, so you can kind of expedite the process a little bit. But if anything, definitely do try the filling of this recipe, and you can pair it up with rice or put it over some bread or something, and it tastes absolutely amazing. Anyways, as usual, if you happen to like this recipe and you like what you're seeing, remember to hit that thumbs up and that subscribe button. I definitely do appreciate it, and I will see you guys again next time. Bye!